Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 14th episode of the BaZi Gratitude Series. Can you freaking believe it? We are just rolling. Today, I have a super special guest. Her name is Master Teacher Colleen Inman, and I cannot wait to hear what she has to say, what she has to offer to all of us today. We're going to be talking about the 3 poisons to avoid. To avoid. I love that title, by the way, to avoid, because we are humans. So we can't totally end anything, but we could totally avoid them. But I want to introduce Colleen properly because she has quite an impressive background. Colleen has been training in Dan. I think that's how you say it, Dan? Hatha.
Dahan yoga is
Dahan, okay. Hatha and Taoist lineage, practices and philosophy of yoga, medical qigong, yang and shen tai chi quan, Bagua, Kung Fu, traditional Chinese medicine, Vedic and Chinese astrology, quite the list. She is a mama, she is a wife, a published author, and business owner operator of Zen Wellness, Zen Yoga Center, right here in Sun City, West Arizona. In fact, that's how we met. I got to go to her beautiful studio and taught a couple workshops. She is currently a certified instructor through Forest House Yoga, cannot wait until I get to do that, and a certified master teacher through Zen Wellness, including certifications in yoga, qigong, and tai chi. In the summer of 2016, she earned her master teacher degree upon completion of a decade of training, graduating 108 students and 108-page thesis on Taoist qigong and yoga. In the winter of 2017, she was recognized as a Doyi Masters from the Doyi World Headquarters, having completed 10,000 hours of Doyi training. Holy cow, Colleen. Woo! Ching, 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 ching. You know, one of the things that I loved about meeting with you and coming over to your studio to teach is that I love the way that you approach these practices, from really honoring the traditions and really upholding, you know, the integrity and the traditions of these beautiful practices that have been passed down for, you know, centuries. You know, before we get into today's topic, just tell us a little bit about how you got into all of these beautiful practices and, you know, walk us through your journey a little bit.
Absolutely. And before I start, thank you for having me on. It's been wonderful to meet you and interact. The journey has been interesting. I think it's always set. I heard about yoga young, but then you grow up and you go out in the world, and I wanted to try it. And one day a Dahan yoga flyer landed on my counter. And so I'm like, check it out. And I walked in, took the class, and I went, how do I do this the rest of my life? Every day, this is what I want to do. So it was an instant kind of like a love affair with the practice. So I stayed with that for years, went to Hatha, went to Qigong. Is just, it was an immediate yes. You get a few of those in life.
Yeah.
And when you get those yeses, you hear them and you stay to them. So it just, you know, it branches out to 10,000 faces from there. So the practice, you know, you stay in it. And that was about 20 years ago that happened. So it just, you stay with it.
Yeah, I love, and you're absolutely right. There are a few of those yeses where you just know in the deepest part of your core that you just have to make it happen. You have to follow that path. By the way, I have to make a comment while we're recording, because I made the comment before, is I just love your gorgeous long hair right now. It's just so beautiful, because now I actually can see the camera full on, like the video full on, and your hair is just beautiful. So anyway, that's just a little side giggle for being girls. Tell us a little bit about today's subject. This was such an interesting topic to pick in terms of the 3, what you also refer to as the nons, the 3 nons or the 3 poisons. So walk us through a little bit about what those 3 are and where do they come from?
That's, yeah, absolutely. So thank you. The 3 nons and the 3 pieces that create suffering really have come through. You'll hear it in Buddhism, you'll hear it in Taoism, you'll hear it with a Vidya in like a Vedic knowledge. So I love studying all these knowledges because you can find the the similarity roots, and that's where the truth lies. So if you find this truth with the veins of everything, you follow that truth. So they go into non-attachment, non-resistance, and non-judgment. And these are the three things that kind of get us really the most in the mind. So really you have to first start with, well, what is suffering? And there's pain and there's suffering. And there's two very different things. Pain, of course, usually something, a physical, a trauma, something happens, but the suffering is the mental story that we wrap around that experience. And then we go with that, whether we become attached to that story and carry it far past its usefulness, whether we resist something that is actually currently in that place, or whether we remain in kind of too much judgment. And the suffering really is something on an internal nature. This has to do with our internal voice. And I really picked it, I follow your BaZi so well. And we have this time of year and we're looking at even just what can happen, and kind of the yin season can be heavier. And so it's a time to go yinward, right? You're going, it's yin. So what's yinward? Is our mind, is our self, is our internal voice. So this is really about how do we talk to ourselves and how do we work with the external world, you know, what's happening over that.
That was so nicely put, and you're absolutely 100% correct. I mean, in about 7 to 8 days, November 7th is when we transition into the water cycle according to the Shah calendar of the BaZi system. And that's the beginning of the water cycle. And as we know, 2020 is an incredibly powerful water year. And so you have a water season. So everything is just basically intensified. Let's walk through each of the poisons. You talk about non-attachment. That's really hard for you know, like, okay, I'm not going to get political, but we all have, you know, certain expectations of what we expect. Or if we go to the gym, we work out, we have certain expectations, like how our body should look and how our body should feel. If we operate a business, we have certain expectations of how that should be performing. So non-attachment is something I've heard a lot through the practice of Buddhism. So tell us a little bit about how that really, I guess, how can we really embody that in reality? And what are some of the tools that we can use to kind of catch ourselves to stay in that space of non-attachment?
Absolutely. So attachment, you're right. It is probably one of our most challenging things. We're attached to our youthfulness. We're attached to our business. We're attached to our friendships, our children, you know, people who become empty nesters. You know, it's a very difficult idea. So the concept, even with working, let's say towards a business, is shifting the mindset of working for the sake of being able to work and putting out your best effort, and then just kind of shifting to that space of almost surrender or allowing to what kind of comes back. So if you're doing your full merit, if you're doing your full efforts, you know, you don't even have to worry about attachment to kind of what comes back or what comes in. But we do, and we don't like the sense of loss. It's very hard for us to interact with the material world, the world of form, the external world, because it's built on change. There's one law in the universe, and that's change. That's the only constant. The physical world is very temporary. It's coming up, it's coming down, it's going in, it's going out. So the first step starts by just knowing this. Just know that there is a constant flux. Things are going to start and they're going to end. It's like I tell my children, you know, they go to a party and they're very sad when it's over. They don't want to leave. They're very attached. And I just say, well, we have to let this one end, or we can't let another one begin. So we just knowing that is the first step.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps. That is such a great analogy. I mean, if you really think about, you know, the emotional attachment that we have to things, right? It's like, oh, wow, that was such a great vacation, or that was such a great experience. Oh, you know, when people get married, right? It's like, oh, the honeymoon is over, you know? So you're absolutely right. I love that, that description, that analogy. Tell us about non-resistance, right? Is that right? The second one?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, non-resistance. So of course we have resistance to things. I mean, there are some good resistance, things that we think will hurt us, but they're often, this is resistance. This is where anger comes in. This is where the emotions get tied in. Resistance is often, in some ways, they'll say the things you don't like about yourself, so you resist that in others, which is always a tough thing to be able to accept. So there's a lot of internal looking and work here that we kind of go into, but not resisting what the moment brings is really what it is. Sure, do you work to create the best moment you want? A lot of it too is keeping the mind in a focus point of what you want. But as we've all experienced in life and in 2020, there's going to be things that are going to happen whether you want them to or not. So you can sit around in resistance and suffer with that internal, sensation, or you can kind of, let go. They say let go and let God, but let go and let the divine, let go and let fill in whatever word you like there.
Yeah.
And then move about your life, and find a way to format in that. So you can either sit in that resistance and stew in that suffering. Sorry, it's kind of a tough way of saying it. Or you can accept that moment and, do your best to kind of coexist.
Do you think that that is tied into humans' desire for control? It's like, you're like, you know what I mean? Like that sense of control. It's like, how can I just let go? How can I just let that be? It makes me feel absolutely vulnerable. And like just this loss of control is, if for some people, it's just absolutely frightening.
It is if you forget who you are.
Yeah.
So if you think your form, if you think you're your body, if you think you're your house, if you think you're your items, your stuff, your emotions, your relationships, your thoughts, if you forget who you are, you will feel a lack of control. If you remember who you are, then you can play. It's a lila, it's a play, it's an experience. It's like, I always joke, we all got these Halloween costumes to put on for a lifetime, and we put them on and we go into them screaming, we take them off kicking and screaming. But this is your play, this is your story, but you're not the costume. And that's where, so we're grasping for control for an external world that always changes, instead of connecting to the control, which is the constant internal self.
Which
So,
is our truth as ourself. Yeah.
correct. So it's a tough, so if you can connect to this and realize that that's going to ebb and tide, you don't need that control. But we're so inside thinking we're outside, and we get lost. We want to control that because we want certainty. We have a very hard time with uncertainty, and the word change is a tough word. No.
This is very interesting because when I work with my clients, they'll say, "Oh, I love change. I like change." And I say, yeah, but you like change if it's under your control.
Yeah.
Don't fool yourselves. Nobody really enjoys change when it comes at you and you're not paying attention.
Right.
So,
they like controlled change, what they control. They don't like uncontrolled change. That's where we get into it. Can we allow that uncontrolled change? Now, I'm not saying let people run over you or be a doormat. Like it's not resist if it's in a bad situation. You don't walk away. It's not that. But they say you have three choices: accept it, change it, or walk away from it. Is the three kind of things that we work on here. But those are how you work with the resistance.
Yeah. Ooh.
Sorry.
Non-attachment was hard, but that seemed deeper. I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds harder. And I can see now, I mean, we're getting to the third point, but now I can see how they kind of all are entangled, in this web, right? So number 3 is non-judgment. It's like, hello.
Yeah. That one's really built. I love tying this in. I sat down for a little bit and really contemplated. So this connects to number 4, the I Ching Youthful Folly. So youthful folly is judgment. If you know that image, and the idea is it's really untaught youth. It's just a ignorance. It's a staring at something from one perspective. So we had a teacher who would always teach us. Okay, so I'll hold this up. I have some hand cream, and on this side I say, "Oh, look, it's all these words." And you're like, "No, there's this purple stripe." And I'm like, "No, there's no purple stripe. You're wrong. That's how you're out of your mind." And you're seeing one side, I'm seeing the other. But if we get a full education, then we see both sides. And so it's a bigger view. So it's how many views can you take? And then the judgment reduces. And it's also on the external layer, right? Because we're all souls embodying some type of
Yeah.
costume or experience.
I just feel like these wisdom and philosophy, way of life, and in Taoism, which you're very, very versed with, is actually so important today. With
Yeah.
what's going on in today's environment and just the sabotage that's happening between relationships and just the emotions that are, there's no right or wrong. It's just there's emotions on both ends. And that non-judgment in terms of how you just describe it is really, I feel like it's a miss. It's like we're missing that. It's like, no.
Yeah.
And so it's I feel like you right now, there's a need for people like yourself to be out there in the world, to raise the awareness, to say we don't have to suffer, we don't have to create more suffering as a
Right.
result if we just are able to open up our eyes and to be open and to elevate our consciousness to realizing that actually it's okay. It's totally, it's not the end of the world and oh my gosh, and the way it used to be. And, there's people categorize pre-COVID life and now it's the post-COVID life. And you know what I mean? And so I just feel like there's so much treasured nuggets in those three things. I mean, I would really love to see you just put on like some workshops to really dive into these three poisons, with exercises and really kind of like sitting down and identifying, what are the three judgments that I have or the three resistance that I have and the circumstances around that. And what are the tools that I can do to help navigate that? I think you would be so awesome. I just like,
No.
now I'm planting the seeds to have you do stuff. Don't you love that?
It is. You should do this.
Oh, you should do this, Colleen. I want to do this for you. Well, for everybody that's listening, actually, Colleen is going to be our guest instructor with the IFSA USA chapter in November, actually November 13th, Friday the 13th. Woo! She's going to be talking to us about the 8 brocades, the treasures of the 8 brocades, and how we can use that to help our overall wellness, and some demonstration and beautiful teachings around the history and the benefits of all that. So you definitely are a treasure trove of knowledge and can't wait to like tap into all of that. So when we look at all of these three things together, how would you kind of like describe, if I'm a person watching this video and, what would you say would be like maybe my top things that I can do today, especially going into the winter cycle and a lot of emotions, a lot of uncertainties happening with the market, with the election, or, COVID. What are some, I guess, wisdom that you can shed at the moment to help people have some sense of perspective or control?
Right. It really, it's interesting because it's a metal item. It comes down, the best thing or the quickest way in is to become aware of your breath. Your breath reveals your emotions. Have you ever been mad? I have. And what do you sound like when you're mad? Right? The breath gets really fast. And what happens when you're sad? The breath has a certain sound. So there's actually under the attachment, resistance, judgments, it goes into the 5 elements. So there's 5 under each one of those 3. Now, what happens is each one of those elements has an emotion and a breath style. So if you could become aware of your breath, first, notice your breath in general. Then find a set breathing. Steady inhale, steady exhale. Very simple. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. No big deal. And then keep paying attention to your breath throughout the day. And when you feel it start to get shallow, jagged, fast, it's like the year of breath, right? So we inhale, so my suggestion, first step, know your breath, and it will tell you your emotions, which are your flags of suffering.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
I'm going to have to do that. That is such an easy tip because, I mean, we all breathe, obviously.
Right. Yeah, you're doing it right now.
But sometimes we are biased. We think we're not mad, right? You're like, no, I'm not pissed. I let that go. But then you're like sitting here, like doing all kinds of weird sounds and breaths. That's great. Thank you so much, Colleen. That is so wise, so practical, so simple. That's why I feel like there's a lot of these beautiful knowledge that, it's really, it's all about like demystifying it because there's still they're so relevant in modern day life, even though they're thousands and thousands of years old. In fact, I think they're more treasured now because because of how complicated life can be today in the modern world.
I agree
Thank
wholeheartedly.
you, Colleen. Tell our audience a little bit about what you're offering at the moment, you know, for people, how can they find you? What kind of offerings are you doing at the moment and all that fun stuff?
Sure. So what I'm offering is I put together a little mini course for this. It's a very short, sweet 5. It goes through each of the 5 emotions and a breathing
Oh, you
technique.
did. You do have a course.
I did. And I made it on sale. So it's a very simple 5-element Qigong course. You can find it on zenyoga.com. It's normally $27. I put it up sale for today for 9. It's very short, very sweet. It gives you what you can do. It's going to take you maybe 25-30 minutes to go through, but then you can do it every day for 3 to 5 minutes and just start. It's something to help guide you through this season and the breath work that we kind of talked about.
Oh, that's amazing. That sounds like a great holiday gift for people.
Oh,
But don't wait for a holiday. Maybe they need it now.
great.
Like pre holiday gift.
Halloween holiday.
Yeah, you know, like you could use it now.
Yeah.
Use it now. Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Colleen. You are absolutely just so magnanimous. And I admire you a lot. And I know that I can't wait to tap into more of your learning, your teachings, and all that fun stuff. And so I really appreciate you and your time this morning and just sharing some nuggets with my audience, I guess. So thank you. Let me just put up your info here really quick, just so everybody's got it. Da-da-da-da-da-da. There's Colleen.
Thank you, Jen. Likewise with you. I love learning from you. I love all of your teachings. So thank you so much.
There's a lot of good jujus here. All right, everybody. I will see you again next week. Thank you, Colleen.
Bye, Jen.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.